I'm streaming breakfast. This is a new experience for me. Good morning. I'm just getting set up with my diagrams. I had to print something out real quick. So today we're gonna be working on, good morning, hello. We're gonna be working on the last Sapphire design from this batch. So let me show you where I'm at right now with this. So I've started this stone last night and I've got the crown done. For this one I don't need to polish, I'm just cutting. This is just a sample for a specific design and I just want to see the faceting pattern. You can kind of see the facets twinkling over here a little bit. That's my crown. The crown is just a regular brilliant cut. What's going to be funky is the bottom. I'm doing a bunch of different designs, new designs for the bottom, and just to see how they look visually and stuff. So that's what we're going to be doing for the first part of today. I think this is going to go pretty quick because I don't have to polish. So basically, before I went to bed last night, I took the stone off the wax because I had this waxed on here yesterday on the dop, and I flipped it over. I glued. You can see all this glue and stuff. I've glued it, and I let it sit overnight. I only needed to really let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes, but it was bedtime, so I let it sit overnight. It's centered. I centered it visually by eye, so it's perfectly centered, as you can kind of see. If I turn it, it's not going left and right or anything. So basically what I have to do now, my next step in order to be able to actually cut the stone, I need to align it onto the index. So I've got my index on 96, and the way that this design works is 96 should be going the long way. So what I can do, if I put my protractor to 0, and I just come down, and basically I can just use the lap and align the stone against the lap so that it's flat. That's really all I need to do. And then I'm ready to go. How are you guys doing today? It's another Tuesday. I know my wife just told me that France just extended the lockdown till mid-May, so I think this really is becoming the new normality. I don't know how it is in the States or wherever you guys are at. Thailand, we're on lockdown until April 30th at least. That's the date that they've said all of the shops are going to be closed till, but I'm 100% sure they're going to extend that as well. I think everybody's going to extend that because, you know, pandemic continues on. So I've just done what I said. I have laid the stone against the lap while the dop was loose in the handpiece, and I basically just pushed it flat until it was level or flat with the lap, and I tightened it right here. Then here's how I can double check if I've done the correct thing. So this button is the index release button, so if I push this down, this spins freely. Now if I hold down the button and I just rock the stone till it's flat and I let it go, it should be on 96, and it is. I think you can see that. 96. And I can double check on the other side as well. I flip it over, rock it till it's flat, let it go, double check that. Oops. There's some wax on here too, so I have to be careful with that. Yeah. And here, 48. So we know that it's good. This side has a little bit of glue on the girdle, so it was slightly off the number, but good enough. Yeah, May 15th. Okay, so USA and France are in the same boat. So okay, we just basically, in my mind, we just get creative and we figure out what to do at this time. You know, for me, I've just been spending a lot of time working on these webinars and you know, obviously doing the live streaming for the Twitch. I don't know, you know, maybe some people have to realize that they didn't have enough hobbies in their life, and this is a great time to start a hobby. I know a lot of people don't even have hobbies. For us, gem cutting people, maybe we have too many hobbies. I know for me, I've got a lot of, even though I thought, oh, this is going to be a nice, relaxing time, it's not really been a relaxing time. I find myself so busy that I still can't get all my stuff done. I've overbooked myself, but I'm having fun, and I don't have to go to work anymore, so things seem a little bit more in my power. Okay, so I've got my design up on the screen. I'm not going to show you that one this time because it's a secret, but just to show you guys, it's basically it's a custom design that's sort of mixing, let's say, a princess cut and a step cut together in a funny way. So I'm not going to show you guys the design, but I'll show you guys the faceting as I go through. So I've got my roughest lap on here because, okay, this is a synthetic sapphire. This is just for doing these test patterns. So the way that I've cut the stones so deep like this, I probably, if this was really a sapphire, I wouldn't have really cut it with like this super deep girdle like that. I don't normally cut that way, but for synthetics, no big deal. And also for synthetics, I don't really care if I take off a ton of the material. So basically what I'm going to do is, basically what I'm trying to say is this cut is not efficient to the rough that they gave me. You know, they gave me a pretty big piece of rough that was already sort of preformed as a rectangle. I shortened it to make it an ideal size, and I made my perfect cushion shape, which wasn't the ideal shape for that piece of rough, but it was a piece of synthetic rough, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, exactly. Too many irons in the fire. Too many irons in the fire. So this is one of my irons. I really want to get this job done. I've been working on it since last week, and I've been alternating it with other cutting stuff I have to do. So today's the due day though. So I'm going to cut my first 2 facets on this 260 lap, because if on any other lap that I have that's a cutting lap, this is so tall. Let me switch over to here so you can see it a little bit better. Cutting through this height, even on this 260 lap, takes a long time. It's slow. So if I don't use this really rough lap, I'll be here all day just cutting 2 facets. So let's get going here. So we had a really nice webinar this past weekend. I don't know if you guys are checking out all these different webinars that people are having, but I did an interview with Sarah Caldwell Steele, who's like probably the world's #1 most expert on Whitby jet and jet gemstone in general. So I started one of my many irons in the fire is doing these talks, and I was just doing them every Wednesday, just my own presentation of whatever topic I wanted to speak about. But I kind of decided that I wanted to get other people involved, so I started doing an interview series on Sunday. So yesterday was the first one. It was a great talk. It wasn't yesterday, it was 2 days ago now. It was a great talk. We were talking about the magical uses of jet over time, and yeah, it was a blast. We were going on for more than an hour, almost an hour and a half, I think. And now I'm getting organized for the next few that we're doing. Wednesday this is sort of outside of my, hey, ciao Arjuna. This is sort of outside of my interview schedule, but Wednesday I'm doing a live Q&A with Gemology Geek on Instagram. And then Sunday, the interview series continues with Vincent Pardue, and we're going to be talking about field gemology. I don't know if you guys know about Vincent and watch his channel or follow his social media stuff, but he's pretty well known, traveling around the world, going to all the mines, getting samples for research, and just having a ton of adventures. And so we're gonna do an interview with him and just talk about some of his adventures, and probably talk a little bit about the trip that I got to go on with him one time. And then the weekend after that, we're gonna do a talk with the rough dealer Farouk Hashmi and my buddy Simon Desart here in Bangkok. So it's going to be kind of a 3-way interview talking about the state of the gem trade right now and kind of everything that was leading up to the coronavirus. Kind of like I kind of imagine it as like a gem trade news. Farouk is super knowledgeable about what's going on in the world. He's going to Africa, the Middle East, Thailand, and the US back and forth many times per year. So every time I see him, he always gives me the download, and I was like, man, we got to do this. We got to record this one time and share what you know and what you're seeing on the ground with the world. So I thought, okay, let's try to get Farouk on one of these interviews, and then kind of to fill in the European side and make some good chat as well. I got Simon, who also is, he knows his stuff. So yeah, these are going to be good. Simon and Farouk is going to be in 2 weekends. So not this weekend, but next weekend. And then the weekend after that, I haven't announced this yet, but I'm going to be doing an interview talk with Richard Hughes. And we haven't talked about what we're going to talk about yet, but I kind of want to get him to talk about collecting ancient gemology books, because he has an amazing collection of books going all the way back to the 1600s, and he's a serious book collector. And I thought, okay, I like to get people talking about stuff. Usually, if people interview Richard Hughes, they want to talk about rubies and sapphires, and I was like, okay, maybe rubies and sapphires. He's talked about it enough. Maybe he wants to talk about collecting ancient books. So this could be fun. So if you guys are bored on Sundays, yeah, I think it ends up being on Sunday morning in America, Sunday afternoon in Europe, Sunday evening in Asia. Check out one of these things. Okay, so here in Arjuna, I will remind you for sure. So let's check out what I'm doing right now. I'm just going back and forth between two sides. I'm just trying to get this, basically the bulk of the material that I want to get off. I'm getting it away. And so you see now how thick my girdle is. It's still huge. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to set the girdle size, or get close to setting the girdle size for these two. So I'm just going to keep going lower and lower, but I just wanted to show you what I'm doing while I'm talking. So you can see that took several minutes on this really rough lap. So I don't really want to use any less of a rough lap than this to do what I'm doing right now. And so I'm just cutting deeper and deeper, and the only thing I'm really looking at is that girdle line. And when it gets not where I want it to be, but almost, I stop, because I'm going to do the rest of the way on a finer lap than this. I don't want to cut too deep with this rough lap. And so I'll do 4 facets this way, basically the 4 sides, and then I'll switch over to my other lap. So I'm going to switch to my other facets now. My other facets have a different angle. So yeah, so this week there's going to be basically 2 different interviews. One on Wednesday with Gemology Geek, and one on Sunday with Vincent. So should be a fun week. I like the interviews because I don't have to do as much work as when I have to give the talk. So maybe this will be a little bit of a relaxing week for me. The other thing that's going on this weekend that isn't that relaxing is I've organized basically a webinar conference for a bunch of scholars in the world of Merlin. And so I've got like 5 speakers, including myself, that are going to be giving a presentation on Saturday. That one's not free. It's like $3. But I don't know if your guys' interests cross over into the realm of Arthurian legends. But if so, you can check that one out too. Should be pretty fun if you're into that stuff. If you're not into that stuff, I'm not sure if it's that interesting. But yeah, I'm still just basically just cutting in my first 4 facets and trying to get rid of a lot of the extra material. You can see it's quick, but it's slow at the same time. Now, I don't want to leave too much girdle here, because when I switch over to my next lap, it's going to take forever if I leave too much. So I want to make sure that I get close, but not too close, not too far. And so this is what it looks like now. Let's pull this through. So I've got 4 sides, and notice the girdle line that's shining right now is huge. It's so thick. So this is what I'm working on. I want to get it a little bit closer than this, but not much. So okay, those 2 sides are good. Let me do a little bit more on my long ones. This table, I call it the handpiece plate. I don't know if there's a special name for it, but that seems to be the best name. Or the riser plate. Yes, I guess sometimes they call it the riser plate because it's rising up and down. But yeah, I think the handpiece plate makes sense. I've got one friend, he's cutting in Antwerp. He's a colored stone cutter in Antwerp. And he uses this machine, but he doesn't use this handpiece. He's using, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Thai handpiece. I can show you what it looks like real quick. Basically, he's using this handpiece. So this handpiece, if you can compare it, you can see it's pretty simple. Instead of having all these angles and indexes and stuff, it basically just has this piece of metal here stuck in a rolled up piece of paper. And to change your angle, you just go like this. And to change your index, you just turn it. And you have to keep this thing a little bit tight, but you can sort of turn it. The paper lets you keep it tight and also turn it at the same time. So you can twist, or you can slightly change your angle. And so he's using this machine, but using the Thai handpiece. I don't know why. I guess he was trained on the Thai handpiece, so he knows that handpiece. But he has that machine at work, and so he wanted to cut at home. And at home he has like an Ultratech V5. He has an Ultratech V5 and an extra Ultratech V5 base. Again, I don't know why. But he was like, I really want to cut with my Thai handpiece at home. Can you find one of these riser plates that could go on my Ultratech? And I was like, okay, I think I could find that. I talked to some dudes in India that make stuff like this, and I was like, can you guys make a special one where there's like a screw on the bottom that can go into the Ultratech? They said, yeah, we have one like that. So we sent it to him in Antwerp, and so now he's got an Ultratech V5 base with an Indian-made riser plate thing and his Thai handpiece. I was like, wow, okay, this is a cultural mishmash here. I don't really know. You know, I think from the American point of view, taking a V5 and cutting with a Thai handpiece on it, this is just ridiculous. But, you know, he likes it that way, so whatever. He's getting his work done. Okay, so I'm going to just bring down the original two facets a little bit more, and then we're going to switch laps. This stone, I like it because since I don't have to do any polishing, it's gonna go so fast. I did the top last night in like half an hour. So easy. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. He's a funny guy. Okay, so I've got my first four. Let's check it out. This is where I'm at. This is where I'm gonna leave it for this moment. Oops. So you can see my girdle's still very thick, but that's intentional. I haven't brought together my culet yet, but that doesn't really matter because there's going to be more steps on here that will do that for me. This is just to get it going on. Well, I think he still uses the V5 mast. I think he just, because he had an extra base. I forget why he had an extra base. I think his base, something like his motor broke or something. And so he sent the base back to Ultratech. But you know, like sending the base to Ultratech overseas means you're not going to have a base for a couple of months. So I think he must have bought an extra base, sent him his old one to get fixed, and then in the end he ended up with an extra base. So he wanted to use it for other work. So now he can either do the Ultratech or he can do the handpiece style. But to me, I just think it's so funny that he has the same handpiece as me. He'd rather use the Thai one, which is so archaic. Okay, so now that my first 4 facets are roughed in, I'm going to switch over to my my real cutting lap. So this is the Adamas 12M. This is what I've been using pretty much if you guys have been on here for the last few weeks or whatever, or month I guess. I've been using this one the whole time. This has now become my main cutting lap. I find that it cuts fast enough to cut the facets in from, you know, basically from where I'm at, and I can go straight from here to polishing. And this is what I was looking for in a lap, so it's working pretty good. The only thing it can't do is cut, you know, it doesn't cut very quick from, you know, if you have a big piece of rough to cut through, which is why I start with that other lap. Okay, so I'm going to continue on doing the same thing I was just doing. Now I'm going to take these facets all the way down to where I want the girdle to be. Basically, I don't want to take them down too deep on my preforming lap because it will, you know, it'll give it a bunch of deep scratches that I'll have a hard time getting out. So I think already we try and cut it a little bit more, and I'll show you the difference in texture. I'm not sure if it will be much of a visual difference, but yeah, you can't really tell actually. So that's 260. Hold on, let me get the focus well. Okay, that's 260. That's 1200. This one looks slightly frostier, but on both of these laps, they don't look as frosty as what I'm used to from using like topper laps and stuff. So whatever, they polish well, so that's kind of all that matters. It doesn't really matter what the texture looks like. And so now what I'm looking at is just how low am I going to go for my girdle line. And I like to be a little conservative. I don't mind if it's slightly thick, if I can bring it, because I might lower it again as I balance everything. But to me, this is okay. If I leave it a little bit thick, I might go a little bit thinner than that, though. It does looks a tiny bit too thick. But at this point, I don't want to go too low because when I'm gonna go around and do all 4, I might bring each one down a little bit more. So let's go on to the ends. So basically, that first one that I just did, this is going to act as my reference point. So then I'm going to cut these 2, and make them to the same depth. So all of this happens visually. I know that sometimes on the mask machine, you're using the mask to almost be like a depth control, like you can cut every stone to the same depth that way, but we sort of do that too with the plate, but on this one, it's more by eye. So I'm just looking and I'm just seeing, does the girdle line at its thinnest point look the same thickness as the other side that I'm referencing? And so far, it needs to go a little bit thinner. Okay, that looks good. So now I've got my plate set to the right depth, so I probably don't need to change it now from one side to the other. And so I'm just looking to see, is the girdle thickness the same? I'm pretty excited. I have another machine coming this week, if everything works out with shipping and stuff, but I ordered a machine a while ago, just like kind of a backup machine or a student machine or whatever. Sometimes we're working on multiple things at the same time, and it would just be handy to have another machine. So they said it's ready to go, and I think they're gonna send it to me this week if everything's cool in Sri Lanka in terms of the shipping and the airports and all that stuff. They're on a pretty tight lockdown as well, so we'll see. But I think I got some new toys coming with the machine. They just made a sort of like dop holder thing, and I was like, hey, one of my students had it in a video, and I never even saw it before, and I was like, whoa, what is that? Where'd you get that? She's like, oh, they sent it to me, so I ordered one of those, so maybe I can stop burning my hands while I'm dopping a little bit. Okay, let me get all 4 of these balanced, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Balanced. Have you guys been cutting a lot during this time, or doing some other kind of time-consuming recreational activity? Oh, it didn't work so well. Why? What happened? Okay, let me show you guys where we're at before we move on to the next step. So for me, this is what I'm happy with as far as my girdle balance. So let me try and get it in a alignment that's easy to see. So I'm looking here, and notice, okay, because this is a 4-sided cushion, they get thicker in the corners. This is normal. So I'm not really focused on the corners, I'm focused in the middle of the facet. And so you see how thick that one is. Then I come over here, same thickness, same thickness, same thickness. So one of the tricks that I use for eyeing that, I put it halfway between two sides like this, like from this view, so I can see this one and this one at the same time. That's good. You can do that all the way around. But the other way that I have started doing lately is when I look at it from this view, and let me see if I can show you exactly what I see. Notice how it comes up, the girdle comes up thicker in the corners. So when I look at it, if I see one side's coming up higher than the other side, I know that one side needs to go down. So the corners can be very helpful. So yeah, between those two, same thing here. I'm looking at the corner here, and if one's higher or one's lower, then I can use that to help me. But now they're all balanced, so now I'm ready to go on to my next step. Sam, what machine are you cutting on? Okay, just like mine. So basically, in my experience, of course, having it as centered as possible is helpful. It's good. It makes it easier because, like, for instance, on these 4 facets that I just cut, if my stone's not centered, then I have to move the plate up and down to get every side to be balanced. I can still balance the stone even if it's not centered on the dot, but it makes it harder. It definitely makes it slower. because I have to come up, come down, come up, come down, because one side's going to go deeper. One side's going to go deeper, the other side's going to be higher because the stone's not centered, but then actually that makes it even. So if the stone's not perfectly straight, that's okay. I mean, it takes a little bit of time to get good at seeing and to get good at the art of balancing the stone. But even if it's close but not perfect, that's okay. You can try. I would try, if you're just trying to test yourself, just try and do a rectangle. That's the easiest one to do. Just a regular baguette shaped rectangle, and try and dop it. And then if it's crooked, if it's, let's say, off center, or if it's perfectly centered, you can still try to cut, 4 sides of your rectangle and make the girdle line be balanced. That's a good test. This is the test I actually use to see if my handpiece is balanced too. But yeah, if you knock it off, that's a different story. If it's popping off the dop while you're cutting and you're using wax, it could mean that your wax wasn't hot enough and it didn't really get a good bond. Or it also could mean that you don't have enough wax underneath the stone. You should really have all of the, whatever is the bottom of the stone, the waxy side of the stone, the wax really should come up on all 4 or whatever, all the way around, and make kind of a nice cone, like an ice cream cone shape underneath of it that's very supportive. You don't want just a very small amount of wax, otherwise there's a good chance it can pop off. Or if you just knock it on this thing, I've seen several students do that. Just you're going back over the machine and you just knock the handpiece against the riser plate control thing. But yeah, don't give up. It's it's a practice. You have to get good at it, and then it gets easy. Okay, so now I'm on to my next step, which is kind of some funny shaped facets, and I want to make sure that everything's even and centered. I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing. Now that I have the first 4 done in this particular design, everything's going to go super fast now. So, see these 2 facets I just made? You can see them perfectly right there. It's like it makes a triangle at the bottom. So that was my original facet, and I just cut in 1, 2, left side, right side, and they're perfectly meeting to the little the part of the corner that gets thicker. This is the 3rd time I've cut this design, or actually it's the 4th time. I've been doing variations of it, but now I have the sequence down. The first time I cut the stone, this stone has corner facets that push the girdle down. But because of the way that the faceting pattern is, if you try to do them in the beginning where you would normally do your corners, they don't work. Because there's too many meet points. Maybe it doesn't make sense without seeing the design, but there's a lot of meet points on this stone, and I didn't have the sequence right the first time, so I messed up the stone and I had to adjust it on the fly, and it wasn't exactly the way that I meant it to be from the diagram. Okay. So I'm just doing 2 sides because both of the long sides are the same. So I'm going to do my whole I'm going to do a bunch of facets on my long sides. Then I'm going to do my ends, so I don't have to go back and forth around the stone. Plus, the way that I built this diagram, it's meant to be cut on the long ends and then on the short ends. The facets meet up correctly that way. In terms of, on certain designs that are a little bit more complicated, you need to have some meet points in certain places in order for other facets to come in. Otherwise, you don't know when to stop. So that was my problem on the first time. I didn't know when to stop and I cut the corners too big. Okay, let's see now. So the other thing I want to do, as I'm doing two sides back to back, I want to make sure that my central line is perfectly centered on both sides. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So let's see, how can I show this to you guys? Okay, so I just showed you that there are yeah, you see 1, 2 facets on top, and there's a line in between them that comes to the culet. Now on the other side of the stone, I've got the exact same thing now. I just cut the other two. So what I want to do, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the camera because I can barely even see it with my own eyes, but when I look at the stone dead on from the culet, yeah, it doesn't look like anything on the camera, but basically I want to look and see, is the line on this side and the line on this side at the exact same spot? And they are, but if they're not, then you need to adjust something. No, I didn't find the Raytech. I wasn't looking for me. I was looking for somebody else. They wanted to buy one. I sold a handpiece to somebody, and they wanted to get the base because their base is, I don't know, out of the country or something, and they can't get it right now, and so they're locked down and want to do some play cutting. But I didn't find it. No one volunteered any info, but I think he's gonna get. There's an extra one of these laying around that belongs to the school that he's gonna borrow, or it belongs to somebody through the school, I guess. So I guess he's gonna use that one while everything's locked down. Okay, so let's go back to this other view, and we're gonna keep on going here. So now we're on the third tier. And all the facets are getting small now, so just got to be careful, look a lot. I don't want to overcut anything. You don't have a razor blade on yours? How does your machine work without a razor blade? Okay, let me show you. I just did the next step. So before we had two sides that were making a line in the middle. Now I've cut another middle facet, so it's turned those lines into two triangles. You can see. So now I have a big facet, two triangles, and another big facet. And then I've got a little bit more to do on this crown, or I mean on the culet point. And then these two sides are done. And so yeah, I'm using the loop in this step just to make sure nothing gets overcut. And for these last facets, I'm leaving a little bit of a gap between my meet points because I want to make sure that when I go to polish, when I start, I'm gonna push them all together a little bit, and I don't want to overcut, so I'm leaving small gaps in the meet points. But so let me show you. Final step for this side. It doesn't want to focus now. There we go. So put a little rectangle up here. You can see I left a little bit of a gap right there. And now I'm ready to do these ends. So let's see what happens. Okay, what's my next step here? And these sides are easy, there's just a few facets on each side. So maybe you guys have seen, I'm doing a class coming up about designing gemstones using the Gem Cut Studio software. If you haven't seen it, then let me tell you, I'm doing a class, and it's $9. It's going to be 3 hours, and basically we're going to go through all the different tools inside of Gem Cut Studio. I'm going to design 3 different stones with you guys, one from scratch. One's going to be a modification of an existing design, and one is going to be built up off of a drawing, which sometimes customers ask me to do here. Just basically, can you take a pre-existing stone and give me the diagram for it? And this is helpful, even just as an understanding practice tool. So I think between those 3 exercises, we're going to be able to really understand all of the fundamentals of how to use the software. Sweet, Sam, you're signed up, so I'm going to see you there. It should be fun. This is a totally new idea. It's a totally new class. In the class that we do here in Bangkok, we kind of just really lightly touch on the software side of things. I give them a little demo, but I don't show them how to use it or give them a chance to use it. So this will be fun, more like instructional, and giving people a chance to ask some questions and whatnot. So yeah, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna do 2 of them for different time zones, basically. Okay, and I'm just getting these 2 ends Perfect. Okay, so here's what I've done. So now on the ends, before I just had, you know, one big side, right? Like just one big triangle. Now I've got 3 triangles, and the edge of the triangle here, you see where it stops? It's exactly met up with, yeah, perfect. You can see it perfectly right there. It exactly meets this other triangle, so they are nicely pointed. Yeah, you can see right there. So I'm going to do that on the other side now. Yeah, I think it wouldn't be bad. I was gonna send out an email to everyone that's registered and say, you know, you can just watch the class, but maybe it's not a bad idea to have the software open while you're watching. Though I'm not sure. You know, with me, I've got 2 screens on my computer, so I can see what I'm doing and I can see what I'm streaming at the same time. I think if you are watching Zoom, you're going to need a second monitor to watch what you're doing in GymCut Studio. So yeah, I have to think about that. Maybe I won't recommend that actually, because I don't think people will be watching. Basically, what I am going to do for sure is whoever has registered for the class, I'm gonna make it available that they can get the video, because I'm going to record it, and I'm gonna put a private link up on YouTube. So basically, anyone who's taken the class can get the video, so they can watch it again later. So if you miss something, or if you want to go through it with me later, maybe that makes more sense. So I'll send an email out and say that instead, because yeah, I think if you only have one screen, it's going to be impossible to try it, because GymCut Studio really takes up the whole screen, and Zoom also takes up the whole screen. So yeah, I think that's a better way. Several people have already asked me, you know, can you put it up on YouTube or something like that later? And you know, we're willing to pay, but we just can't make the time. I haven't looked into it yet, but I know that YouTube has a sort of a rental service. So I'm gonna probably make the class available, you know, at a later date, not live, just like you can download the videos, or at least you can watch them a couple of times for a couple of dollars, you know, probably same price, $9. But if you've paid to take the class live, I think I'm gonna say, you know, you can get the files for free, I think. I still have to look up the YouTube thing. I don't know if that's really gonna work. I haven't checked it out yet, but I don't know how that works. But I'm sure there's some way to do it. I got another class in the works. I'm just working on it because it's a big class, but it's going to be called The Science of Gem Cutting. It's kind of like a theory class. And basically, I want to give it as an online class, like let's say like a half-day class, like a 6-hour class. But I need a ton of photos and videos before it's ready, so I've been collecting photos and videos over the last couple of weeks of stones that we have and stones that we've been cutting for customers and stuff like that. And so I'm starting to put the skeleton PowerPoint together for that. I want to get it ready here real soon, because you know, this is a perfect time for online classes. Everybody wants something to do. So and I think it's going to be a fun class. I haven't done a class like that before. You know, we kind of talk about this idea of, well, I mean, obviously we talk about gem cutting theory in our 2-week cutting course here in Bangkok, but I want to go much deeper than even what we go into in that class. And yeah, that's kind of what I have in my mind. But I don't know how long it's going to take. And I don't know if it's going to be a Zoom class. I don't know if it's going to be more like a distance learning PowerPoint class. I'm not totally sure. I kind of intend it to be more like a distance learning PowerPoint class, but I haven't decided where I can host a class like that yet in terms of on the web. So it's another thing I got to look into. Okay, so here is that corner facet that I was referring to earlier. And I'll show you exactly why I didn't cut it in before. Okay, so switch over here. Okay, so I've got my, hold on. Okay, good. So you can see I got my two triangles. I got those facets the way that I had them before. And now what I've added is that right here, that little corner facet. And notice, if I can show you, yeah, it perfectly comes up and meets the point where both of those triangles touch. And I've left a tiny gap so that I can perfect it in the polishing step. But the first time I tried to do this stone, I didn't realize that I needed to sequence this one right at this moment. If I was to cut this corner when I cut my other four sides, which is normally when I cut my corners, I don't know when to stop. I just keep on cutting, it gets too big, and then when I cut all these other facets, the corner facet's already there and it's huge. So what I realized, I had to go back in my design and change where I cut this facet, you know, timing wise. It has to be right here when I have these other two reference points to meet with. Otherwise, I don't know when to stop. So I cut one, that's that one. Now I'm going to go through and cut all the other four, or the other three. Hold on, I've run out of water. Okay, just had to refill my water drip. So this is Milo. She's been rubbing her eyes too much, so she has to wear the cone. But we got her the soft cone. She got sick last year. She got really sick, and we thought she maybe was gonna die, but we didn't let her, and she fought the disease, and she lost her ability to walk, but now she's walking again, but she still has some trouble with her dry eyes, all related to that disease. So she's become our little baby. Yeah, little baby. So that's Milo. Okay, back to cutting. The Adamas lap is centered, so it's charged already. The diamond is in the lap, and it's, as you can see, I don't know if you can tell, it's quite thick. I'll show you whenever I take it out. It's basically a brass lap with diamond going down deep. So this should be a long-term lap. It's should have at least a 20-year lifespan, maybe longer if I'm lucky. And basically what you have to do is every once in a while, when the diamond gets too abraded and soft, you just take one of these alumina oxide sticks, and you can see I've already done this recently because it's all chopped up, but you just put it against the lap and it grinds off the top layer of the brass and kind of lets a fresh layer of diamond be revealed so that it gets sharp again. Okay. And last corner. Yeah, it's pretty nice lap. They're like $450, so they're pretty expensive, but you know, I mean, if the lap's really going to last for 20 years, and I don't know if you haven't seen the Adamas website, they have a bunch of really high-tech stuff. You probably know their products if you use Gear Loose. The guy who makes the Adamas stuff is called Thomas Smith, and he works with Gear Loose. He's the one that came up with using polycrystalline diamond powder. He's the one that made the idea for the matrix lap. I think he made the idea for the he brought in the idea of using zirconium oxide for quartz. He made one other lap with Gear Loose. I forget what it is. Yeah, one of the other, maybe the Creamway, I'm not sure. One of the other laps, it was a kind of a collaborative project between Gear Loose and Adamas. So yeah, those guys together, that's a good partnership. They're both pretty brainy. Okay, just checking everything here. Okay, everything's looking good. I think I just have one step to go. Yeah, last little tiny facets. So let me do these last little facets and I'll show you guys where I'm at. I mean, basically with all the faceting gear, that's kind of the story. Or it should be the story. Long-lasting but pricey. I have not used a hyper edge, but I have heard good things. I met Ed, the guy that makes the hyper edge laps in Tucson, and he was super nice. He showed me some, but I didn't get to use them. I heard great things about them though, but I haven't had the opportunity. They seem to be pretty easy, pretty high tech. Like just add water and go. That's what Ed says, and that's what kind of everyone that uses them says. But you guys tell me. I never tried them. So this last little facet, it's meeting two other meet points. So I'm adjusting my angle as I go to make the angle be perfect. Because as I lower and raise this thing, I don't know if you're noticing, but as I'm cutting right now, the third foot's not on the plate anymore because I've lowered it too far. Because I'm basically like adjusting the angle. Basically, if I lower the plate too much, the handpiece goes back like this, and normally that's bad. Like for the beginner student, that's bad because it usually means you're not cutting at the right angle. But for me, I'm super subtly adjusting my angle to pull it down a little bit because it's not reaching the point I need it to reach. This is my last facet, so I'll show you guys what I'm doing. Okay, stone is done. So let me show you guys what I've been working on. So this is the final design. All my meet points. So my last little facet I was working on was this little triangle right down here. So yeah, the sides are pretty simple. Got a couple little, hold on, let me just get the whole thing dry. Got some interesting stuff going on in the corners. Some stars going on. Yeah, it should be a pretty good design. We've already done this one 2 times in dark material. Now we're trying it in light material just to see how it comes out. Yeah, it's because of the handpiece. If we do the sweeping motion in cutting, basically what happens, every time you see me cutting, I pretty much just stay right in this line. I'm aligned with the spindle. And we just do cutting right here. We don't need to go back and forth. And usually what happens is if we go back and forth, like on the American machines, normally people are cutting like, you know, left, right. First of all, it's not that comfortable for us to do that. It's not that smooth. But also, what ends up happening is it warps your facets on the edges a little bit, like it pushes them up on the sides. So, you know, here, and here are all slightly different angles. And so if we just stay in the middle during the cutting, because the cutting happens so fast, we don't want to bend, you know what I mean? We don't want to alter the flatness of the facets at all. So we just stay in the middle, and then in the polishing step, we go through and we do the bottoms, or we do the sweeping. Okay, so now for the bottom of this one, I am going to do the polishing. The other ones I was polishing on a copper lap, and it was giving me a bunch of scratches and stuff. I wanted to try and do these ones on the bat lap and see how that goes. See if it's giving me any less scratches than my copper lap. So this is a heavily worn bat lap. And I haven't used it in a long time, so I better clean it before I do anything else. Yeah, they must be plugged in down there. Just have to sync them on Bluetooth. Huh? Just put them in and then go on Bluetooth and... Okay, so we got a freshly cleaned lap. We need 02. So this is my 02 powder mixed with sewing machine oil. And I'm just gonna smear it in. Okay, that's good. So since I haven't used this bat in a long time, and since that time I've switched to a different diamond powder. That's partially why I wanted to clean it, just to put the new stuff on there. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Let's see what happens. So first thing we do, we double check that our angle's correct. We do that by just doing an inspection touch. You do a quick touch, you see where is the grease at, and you can see, I think, it's a little greasy and dark right there. So if it was only at the top, I know my plate's too high. If it's only at the bottom, I know my plate's too low. But the whole thing's covered in a light layer of grease from the oil, from the diamond powder. So I know I'm in a good spot. So now I can just polish. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, so giving a pretty good polish with that. You can see that one. Went quite quickly. Nice polish. So I'm just going to go up, or I'm going to go back and forth, side to side. Just the two long sides first. I'm just going to go up the tier from lowest to highest. So I'm just going through and making sure I get all my scratches gone. Do you find that you use the Ultratech or the Raytech more? Or do you not use one of them at all? So here I just polished two little triangles, and you can see, let me show you, let me get all the scratches off and then I'll show you what I'm doing. Yeah, okay, good. So you can clearly see those two little stars I just did, super shiny. I forgot to do this, and so I'm going to go back and do that. So it's polishing step. We're going to make sure all the facets are perfectly pointed, so I'm not going to let anything get overcut. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. Notice on this one, so I'm cutting how can I show you? Putting this big facet down here, and focus. Notice how the left side right there it's like half frosty, half polished. And it looks like the left side is not getting polished as much as the right side. Now the temptation would be to turn the cheater so that you're polishing a little bit more on the left. Ah, new follower, thank you. But basically I just need to polish more there. You can see it pretty good right there on the left side. There's still like a streak of rough. And I don't need to mess with the cheater. I just need to give it more time. It's just polishing from left to right. It's just a slight difference between the flatness of my cutting lap and the flatness of my polishing lap. And this happens all the time. Hello, welcome. We're just doing some gem cutting in here today. So we're doing the polishing of a pavilion of a synthetic sapphire. This is a test cut for another project, and we're doing a bunch of different variations of the cut in order to see which one we like better. That's the goal here. And so notice now, just going back to your question about sweeping, Notice now I am in the polishing step. My name is Justin Prim. So in the polishing step, we do sweep a lot. Otherwise, you're going to get scratches. You have to sweep. And even when you sweep, sometimes you still get scratches, and you just have to change your sweeping method. No, it's looking good though. Okay, now when we've got both sides, the first 3 facets of both sides done, and it's okay. English optional. Gem cutting is pretty visual. Okay, so let's see where we're at here. I got now, you can see 1, 2, 3 facets, the big one on the bottom and the 2 triangles. And I'm going to keep on going and do the other steps here. So inspection touch, make sure you're not too high or too low. Perfect, okay. Okay, now do the other side. Yeah, the bat lap is coming in very nicely for this. No scratches. It's always a good feeling when you don't have to mess with it too much. Okay. And final one for these long ends. Hey, no problem. Thanks for hanging out for a while. See you maybe if you're free on Wednesday. We're going to be doing the live stream on Instagram with Gemology Geek. Or next week on Tuesday I'll be back. So see you around. Sorry, my Spanish is so... I forgot. I did know Spanish at one point a bit, but it's been a long time. Okay, one more facet to go on these long sides, and then I'll show you how it's looking. It's coming out very nicely. Okay, good. These two sides are finished. So let's check it out. Okay. So here we can see I've got all my facets polished on these sides, two sides done. And it went quite quick, as you saw, just really what, 10 minutes or something. And now we're going to do these sides and the corners all as one. So let's move on. Okay. We'll put you guys back. Up here. So now, since I'm coming at a new side, new angle, I want to make sure the plate is up, my 3 feet are flat, and then I'm going to come down so I can see exactly where my angle should be, because I'm on 50, which is what this angle is supposed to be. Then I'm going to check, and so when I check, I notice that, so this is what I was talking about, the inspection. So if you get the focus right, notice this very small shiny bit right at the top. See how it's shining right there? Right at the top up here. This is what I'm cutting right now. It's not cutting the whole facet at once, so my plate's too high. I have to come down just a tiny bit so that the whole thing's cutting at once. So basically, she's gonna come down like that much. Uh-oh. Being on the right index would be a good idea. Okay. So test again, still too high. Now, okay, let me show you guys one more time and then I'll get into cutting. Now, can you see kind of hard to tell with the light, but the whole thing is covered in grease now. And yeah, it's a bit hard to tell on the camera. Yeah, if you cut on the wrong index, you can definitely feel it's all messed up. It makes a mark on, it made a mark on the lap too. Luckily, I just did a super small touch. It didn't really, it made a tiny, tiny little thing, but you won't see it when it's done. But yeah, you can mess up your laps that way. You can obviously mess up your stone that way too. Okay, so we know that that side is at the right height, it's the right angle. So we can start polishing. And we're going to watch as we go, make sure we're not too high or too low still. But it's looking okay. Okay, it's looking good. Easy. Okay, now I'm going to go around, do the other side, check it, looking good. Get all the scratches out. Okay, so let me show you what this one looks like now. And now we've just polished this triangle and this triangle, so those are done. So I've got, next I'm going to polish those two frosty triangles, and then I'm going to get into these two little corner facets. Then we're done, so it shouldn't take too long. It's quite quick with the bat lap. So let's see what's our next angles. And so some of these angles are like 39.47, 50.26, 50.60. And I don't know if you've seen closely, but we don't have decimal points on here. Hold on with my focus. You know, this is the numbering system we're working with. We're just lining up the line. So 52.59 looks like this. You know, it's halfway between 52 and 53. To me, I really don't think it's very important that you have these crazy ability to see the okay, hasta mañana. You don't have to have, you know, digital readouts and all this stuff. If you can get close to your angle and then you can adjust by looking, this is the old school way. You know, this is how you see. Even when I use the digital indicator on my old machine, you still have to do some adjustments, especially if you're adjusting as you go. So, because some people are asking me, how can we do fine adjustments on this handpiece, because the Werner scale is so, you know, it doesn't have even half. But if you get close and then you can just slightly adjust with the plate up, down, you can hit all your indexes just fine, or all your mute points just fine. Okay, so change my angle, change my index. come back up, check my angle. Okay. And I need a little bit more. Here it's starting to get squeaky. Just need a little bit more powder. Yeah, the 1 decimal place, you can do that. It works. But really, it's if the goal is to bring the meat points together, and you can do it with your eye if you don't have, you know, a gauge, a digital gauge. See, for instance, here. Let me show you this one, what I'm working on right now, because I'm adjusting an index, right, or I'm adjusting an angle right now. So notice, I'll show you on this side, it's easier to see. Notice the V that's made. I've made a small gap here. Focus. I've made a small gap in the middle. The V isn't pointed anymore. It's open at the bottom. So I need to, when I'm polishing these 2 triangular facets, I need to lower my plate a little bit so that the back of my handpiece goes down just a slight bit, and then the bottom of those 2 triangles gets fatter and touch. And so this is what I'm doing. Oh yeah, okay, no digital. So yeah, you're kind of doing the same as me then. You know what I'm talking about. But this is kind of how we adjust on the fly, or how we make meat points by eye. You know, you just adjust the angle as you go so that it stops exactly when it's meant to stop. And it touches exactly where it's meant to touch. So I'm just trying to get this meat point in the perfect spot, pushing it up, pushing it down, getting all the scratches out at the same time. Okay, good. This is diamond, so I'm using 02 diamond powder and basically sewing machine oil. And this one I need to go slightly higher than I have room for. I have to push that one up a little bit. So. Zero 02 is 1400. This is like a commercial grade polishing grit. This is like a standard commercial grit. Uh, 14,000, sorry. So 14,000, basically, if you go around the world and you see what polishing powder people are using outside of America, pretty much unanimously, it's 14,000. Now, if you want to go to a higher level, we can go to 01, which is basically 60,000. But in my experience so far, I found that it really doesn't make a difference commercially. I mean, customers can't really tell the difference. If you can get a good polish with 02 with all the scratches out, the customers can't really tell the difference. Competition cutters can. Sometimes I can. Sometimes I can't tell visually at all. So 02 is okay. You just got to make sure you get all the scratches out. What we could try and do, a little interesting experiment, if I rub out the middle real good. I've got 01 here, which is 60,000. We can try and do an inner ring of 60. See if you can tell. I've got some laps that I have dedicated to 01 60,000. And I have tried to use them instead of 02 just to see what kind of results I get, but I really can't visually see the difference. So let's see here. Yeah, I don't know. Looks the same. I mean, this isn't a good scientific test because I've got other grit on there, but okay. So let's switch to the other side. So I'm just getting my angle, there we go. Get my plate to the right spot. Okay. So just getting all my meat points good. Everything's coming along pretty nicely. which is exactly what we want. Good. And so I had a scratch in there that I was trying to get off, and I ended up overcutting slightly. Focus here. So you can see right down there at the bottom of that V here. Hard to see, but there's right there. There's a slight line. So I'm going to go back to this one and just lower the angle a tiny bit, and open it back up again. So this time I want to be a little bit lower than my original angle so I can bring it down slightly. Good. Okay, so let me show you where I'm at now. Almost done with the stone, actually. Got 2 more tiers to do, so my sides. Trying to get the focus. So my triangles, these end triangles. Now all I have left to do is these corners, which are not wanting to focus. There's 2 facets here, one on the top, one on the bottom. So let's move on. And so now I'm going to be stretching these out a little bit to make sure that everything fits and every meet point is perfect. These are the last two little puzzle pieces that need to get in there. And you see I'm just doing a little touch each time and checking because I don't want to overcut. I want everything to come together nicely. Got one little scratch I'm trying to get out. And there it goes, good. Good. And so as I polish and I look, I just see, does it need to go a little bit more up or a little bit more down? And then I just adjust the plate as I go to make my micro adjustments. Good. Okay, this one needs to go up a lot. So I'm just looking, cutting, raising, cutting, looking, raising. Because I want it to go up, not down, to make my meet point. Okay, last set, and then I'll show you the final product. And these ones I know that I adjusted them in the cutting so the angle won't be quite right, but I just have to find the angle again. we go. The lap right now is about 650 RPMs. I play with it a little bit to see. This seems to be a good speed, so I just left it there. And sometimes if I want to go faster or if I'm getting a lot of scratches, I'll adjust it and see if I can get a better result in some other way. But this seems to be working pretty good. If you're doing oxide polishing though, what I've found so far is that you need to go a little bit slower. Okay. Okay, and then I need to go back. I had to adjust a lot of stuff right there, so I'm going to go back to my last other facet and just open them up a little bit because I overcut all four of those a little bit because I had to adjust something. So just to do a quick little fix. Okay, finished. So let's see how we did. Okay, so just and get it to focus. There we go. So we got lots of little facets, lots of little triangles here. And nice polish on everything. Meat points are good, nice and pointy. All the triangles are nice, connected. Everything is connected all together. And so, final step, we're going to take it off the dop so we can come over here. Wait, by the way, I wanted to give a shout out to my shirt. If you guys haven't seen these, I've got a bunch of different gem cutting shirts over on our Etsy shop, magisgems.com. There's a link just below this video, so if you guys want to wear one of these, I've got 10 different historical pictures from gem cutting history, and I've just basically taken the ones that I liked the best and I thought worked the best for shirts. Some of them have little captions at the bottom, some of them are just the picture, so whatever is cool for you. You can basically get them in every color and size. They're $25 each. And yeah, the quality is nice. I've really gone through and made all the images really clean in Photoshop, you know, taking out all the backgrounds and stuff and just left the original image. So it probably looks better than it really even did in this 1800s book, which is where this one came from. But on to the cutting. Okay, so final step, we're going to take the stone off the dop. So we're going to take it out of the handpiece. And so this is currently glued. So what I like to do is heat up the glue so that it falls off. So we're going to come over here. I've got the lamp. Now I've got, what I want to do here is I want to heat up the dop. So I don't want to burn myself, so this is where the locking tweezers come in quite handy, so I can just set them in the tweezers. I'm heating up the dop. My goal here is to heat up the glue so that it releases, and it takes about, I don't know, 15-20 seconds. Now I don't need to put the stone into the flame. It's not going to hurt the stone, especially on a sapphire, but it's just not necessary. I'm just heating up the metal, and then try and push it against your table, and eventually it will just come right off. And pull the glue off. Everything's hot, so I'll just let it sit there for a minute, put that out. And then basically once the stone is cool enough to pick up, I can drop it into my acetone. So this is just gonna basically melt the glue. Yeah, it's still pretty hot. So I find just by handling it like this, cools it down pretty fast. Basically what you don't want to do is put the hot stone into the acetone and shock the stone because it could break going from hot to cold too fast. Okay, we'll give that a few seconds. And once we clean this one off, we'll be done for the day. So yeah, I definitely invite you guys, if you're free and if the time zone works for you, Wednesday on Instagram, going to be doing a live conversation talk with Gemology Geek. I'm going to put an ad up for that on Instagram and Facebook later today. Sunday is going to be the talk with Vincent Pardue on Zoom. So I'm going to be putting up the ad for that later this week, probably on Wednesday night or Thursday. And then I'll be here next Tuesday doing more stuff. Probably maybe be working on some, who knows, by a week from today. I don't know where I'll be at in my queue of things to do. But let's see how this looks. Now remember, on this one we didn't polish the top, we just polished the bottom, so it's going to be kind of frosty, but that's okay. Oops. I'm going to polish the top later. And still got some glue. Just let the acetone do its work. You guys have any more questions before we end the session for today? If you think of something later, just message me on social media or whatever, that's fine. And so if you guys feel so inclined, there is a a donation box just below the video screen. Feel free. Also, I'm on Patreon, so if you guys want to be my regular financial supporters and get some free stuff and free behind the scenes access and videos and stuff like that, that's a possibility too. I'm working on new sort of promotional stuff for the Patreon. So outside of just videos, I'm actually thinking about doing some kind of gemstone subscription service where, like, for people that are wanting to subscribe at a higher rate, like, you know, a couple $100 per month, maybe they get a free gemstone every month that I'm cutting or something like that. So we're kind of thinking about what's interesting on Patreon to make it more interesting for people. But yeah, definitely come check us out. Wednesday, Sunday, next Tuesday. Just got this full schedule now. And okay, looks like the glue is off, so I'm just wiping everything off here. And so, final stone, got super sparkly on the bottom. And we can see on the top, even through the frosty surface. Here, let me pull it back over here with the lens. Even through the frosty surface, you can see super shiny. And once I polish the top, it's going to be a nice, whoops, lost it. Yeah, let me turn the brightness down a little bit. So yeah, nice, interesting little cut there, and everybody should be happy with this. Okay, well, thank you guys for hanging with me another session, and catch you Wednesday or whenever, and hope you guys have a good week.